So the question is, does it pay to be good? And the answer is, one reason it pays to be good is you will get better employees working for you in a very competitive HR environment. And I accept that. I think it's a very good point, and I think it is. And then the next thing is about who you are. Does it matter? I got a 5-carat FVS2. You got a 5-carat FVS2. Let's take it down. A 1-carat HSI2. You have a 1-carat HSI2. And I think Doug is saying they're going to buy it from you if you are a better person, basically. How you communicate that you're a better person, interesting. You brought something up interesting about the fact that people want to tag. You have best business practices. You have groups like Jewelers of America. You have groups like AGS. And so people then try to join those groups or get a little badge or have something that will promote them. But you're right about the jeweler wanting something physical or something that can show them that they are prescribing. And I think Jewelers of America, David was going to be here, he couldn't be here. So those can go on. But I think that the question is, does it?
Yeah, Martin, we have some panelists online who want to speak.
Yeah, please. And also anyone, Joshua,
we have panelists online. We've got
Joshua,
David who wants to speak. Yes, Martin, David wants to speak.
Please, Joshua,
Jared.
You run. We'll get you, but Joshua, you run this so that you get more.
Yeah, well, David, you raised your hand. Then we've got Joanne, Jared.
Hand raising. I can't see it, so Joshua, do it, please. David.
Look, a lot's been said, so I'll try to be brief and encapsulate thoughts around what's been said already for time's sake. And that is, there's 2 words that haven't been spoken yet, and it's called consumer confidence. That's all we think about. Now, of course, we're retailers, right? So that, of course, that's all we're going to think about. And consumer confidence begins with how you started in your breakfast this morning, having Farai as a guest this morning, around human rights. And that's what all consumers care about. They're only going to have consumer confidence in the products we sell or any industry if they believe and they have evidence that human rights are protected throughout the supply chain of any product. So that's an important point. But when I hear comments like customers don't ask, of course they don't ask. They expect it. They're not going to ask about something that they expect. And if we're not giving them evidence of that expectation, you've already lost that customer. That customer's never coming to your store, but you'll never know it. And if we wait for customers to ask, we're waiting a long time. We're well past that point. You know, human rights have been an issue in our industry for decades. It's not a new topic. How we talk about it, we talked about it social, ethical, environmental. We talked about corporate social responsibility. Now we talk about sustainability or ESG. It's the same thing. It's just got different nomenclature and different ways to measure it. But everything we're talking about, and I'm aligned with everything that's been said in most cases, is a consumer expectation. If a Evian water put a label on their bottle that said it was fat-free, what would we say? We'd laugh at something like that, right? Because of course it's fat-free. So what are we talking about when we talk about our own products, right? When you're talking about a wave of marketing coming for CSR. I'm not sure there's a wave of marketing coming about CSR. There's plenty of companies who are out there making claims our diamonds are conflict-free. Thank God, 99.8% of them are, but not in the way everybody on this panel thinks about it. We're all like-minded. We think conflict is a common sense definition that takes into account human rights, right? It's great we have the Kimberley process, thank God, right? But we all have to work on going farther, and that's everybody's got a role in their own supply chain, ultimately helping retailers, whether they're chains or whether they're independents, whether they're in the US, Europe, or Asia, it doesn't matter. Today's consumer, as well been said, has these expectations, and it's up to us in our roles to meet it. So when we are asked, or CNN comes along, as you suggest, that we're able to tell a story. And that's not marketing. That's just good business practice today. That's table stakes today. I'll stop there. Thanks for the opportunity.
Okay, Joshua, can you please,
Yeah.
someone else has
Stefan,
raised their hand?
let's go by the order of the people. Stefan.
Yeah, when the call started, I thought to myself, wow, look at the progress the jewelry industry has made in the last 10, 20 years. And I'm all in for, rewarding increments of action because some of these issues are complicated and challenging. This last part of the conversation, I'm a little more worried actually, because I think consumers are one thing, right? But society has expectations as expressed by the SDGs. And we all know that there's three critical issues that we're all paying attention to and have to for the good of society and the planet. And one is human rights and community development. The second is climate, and the third is biodiversity. You have to get those right in the jewelry supply chain. And I think we have to go a step further. I think it's time for a new jewelry vision on, positive jewelry, climate positive jewelry, biodiversity positive jewelry, and community positive jewelry, so that it's not just playing defense, keeping what's bad out of the supply chain. It's about playing offense, right? Showing, talking about, and proving what's good when a consumer makes a purchase. And I think if that, I'd argue that civil society, industry, government need to rally behind a new vision for what jewelry can do to contribute to at least those three issues. Thank you.
Are consumers willing to vote for good jewelry with their money?
Yes, there was a time when the statistics were telling us that everyone who took a poll, and this is going back now to 2015, 16, they would say, yes, we want more responsibly sourced products. But then when they got to the cash register, they weren't willing to give their money. But now statistics, from Forbes to Nielsen to again and again and again, we are seeing that the consumer is voting with their wallet. They more and more are seeking and searching for businesses that are aligned with their morals. And I think it was actually a guest at a positive luxury event, Iris, that you and I attended, who said, if you do not initiate sustainability into your competitive strategy, you do not have a sustainable business, not even financially, forget the ESGs. So the SDGs or any ESGs focuses and goals. So it is proven out and again, and I think I have a stack of them I'm happy to share with everyone, that the consumer is voting with their dollars and they can smell inauthenticity a mile away, even online.
David, do you see that, David Buffard? Do you see that? And part of the
Yes.
strategy of Signet?
Yeah.
Iris,
Yeah.
do you see that where there is actually a price differential for products?
It's not so much the price differential, Martin. Your question was about, customers voting with their wallet. And you only have to look at the growth of the jewelry industry as compared to other categories, right? Our industry, market share in the US, 80, 90 billion, 70, 80, 90 billion. It's been there for a long time. And it hasn't been changing. And it's been losing out to electronics, been losing out to other luxury goods, right? And that's what we're all trying to do in terms of, consumer confidence, is to make sure that we don't continue to lose as an industry, a global industry. The last I knew it was about 164 billion. I don't know where it is today, right? But let's say it's unchanged, right? Well, then that should be a problem to us when there's so many other industries growing, and particularly the industries that are supported by the millennials or new generation, today's shopper, I like to call them. So I'll stop there.
Hey,
Josh,
Joanne.
can you pull some more people in who've raised their hand from the outside, from the virtual world, of the virtual conference? Josh,
Yeah.
anybody with their hands up?
Right, yes, we got there, yeah. Joan?
Great,
Joanne?
thanks. Just a few reflections, I guess, and maybe building on what Stephen and David have said. I'm underpinning a lot of what I've been hearing is really about evidence behind claims. It doesn't matter what claims you're making. It's about whether or not if the evidence behind it is robust enough to back the claim that you're making. And so it really fundamentally, in terms of where the sector is going, and responsible sourcing of all minerals and metals, actually, it's not just diamonds and gold and gemstones, is about the evidence behind those claims. So even if you have certification or a label, you still have to prove with data behind it that your claims are legitimate. And when we talk about data, it's moved beyond provenance to really understanding the context under which something has been mined and traded. So it's much bigger than that. And marrying that, and this is the challenge, this is what everybody's really excited about, but how do you do it? Marrying that with development outcomes. And that's where the SDGs come in. So marrying the SDGs with supply chain data and understanding the context, which is really the business side with development, is where that marriage has to happen. And so while business is very good at audits, development is very good at monitoring and evaluation development contexts. And so we have to marry these things. And there are systems emerging that are allowing us to do that in a consistent way, irrespective of which commodity, context, mine site, or even claim. So everybody can find themselves in there, because we really need to start to be comparing apples to apples rather than everybody, measuring things differently or making claims without a baseline. There are frameworks out there that are being developed and tested. We work with one across Africa that allows us to understand across contexts whether the supply chain is responsible, but I would say more importantly, whether the impacts in the supply chain and the broader community are desirable or not. Because the SDGs, they're not designed to be essentially handpicked what your favorite topic is. They have to work together. And so your framework has to look at, the intersection of all those issues. And if I can give you an example, we have a project called Just Gold in DRC and Cote d'Ivoire. And while the supply chain was clean and we saw, incomes rising as a result of responsible sourcing, when we got at the granular level, applying this framework, we actually could see that men's incomes were rising, but not women's in the supply chain and the broader community. So we were inadvertently contributing to gender inequality, even though we were improving other things in the community. So development's complex, and we need expertise in the frameworks that allow us to work at that complexity. And it's not for jewelers to do. These are things that industry associations can adopt to support their members, for everybody to be talking the same language and measuring things the same way by marrying business with development. And the last thing I'll say, it's not the last thing probably, but right now anyways, is that, if you look at the cover of The Economist, even a few years ago, data was the new oil. And we're constantly pulling data through supply chains out of these communities, and we're not leveraging it in a way that could potentially present new business models. And there's a lot of creative thinking around that can speak to, pricing, competitiveness, not just for the jeweler, but for artisanal miners as well, because they also don't have the right incentives to change, because their reality means that changing the way they do business and, let's say, producing and trading more responsibly will also cost them. So we need to think about all the supply chain actors and how do we put the right incentives in place and bring in data to incentivize that change.
Wow, it's great. It's a great segue to where we're going. I do want to make sure we call all the other people, Joshua, as well.
So we have,
I do want to point out
Jared.
that we're going to be segueing into the question of artisanal.
So we have Jared now.
You mentioned monitoring and you mentioned measuring. And I think I'm really learning a lot about desirable impact. The road to hell is paved with good intentions. Most of them, sometimes I think mine or other people's. So we might think we're helping a community when we're not. The artisanal sector is a challenge, a great challenge, because of their inability to easily implement monitoring and measuring and the kind of things that a large corporation can do. So what we are to be concerned about is that we're breaking the industry's abilities. And so what I mean by that is I say, okay, here's people who are doing stuff to make sure that they're socially responsible. And here are people who are not doing that stuff. Just not doing it. They don't care. Like they're selling China, or I'm not bad about it. There's certainly a market for socially responsible jewelry in China too, but maybe it's not as big as the market on Rodeo Drive, California for socially responsible stuff. So now we're pushing them on the side. So, even if I was to look at something like maybe Signet's stuff, and I keep picking on David, I don't mean to. And then I've got this group in Africa, in Kono District, Sierra Leone, and they can't really get good monitoring easily, although De Beers has certainly invested quite a bit of money to do that. Maybe you want to speak to that, Stephen, or if Adikol's on with the line with us as well. So what can we do for the artisanal sector without crowding them out of the diamond industry? And let me even be a little more, maybe they should be crowded out. Maybe the artisanal sector, we did a lot of work in Sierra Leone. Maybe these people would be much better off in agriculture. And maybe there's a casino economy that's driving some of their artisanal sector stuff. So which artisanal sectors we support, which we don't, how that works. I know the colored stone industry, Doug, it's much more artisanal than diamonds, right? What do you got? 80% of your goods coming from the artisanal? 90%? And what do we have? 10%, maybe 15% coming, maybe 20%, the artisanal sector in the diamond industry. But these are human beings. They're as much a part of our industry as anyone else. So what can we do for them? And we have experts here in the artisanal sector. But before I go on to move us to artisanal, I want to make sure that Joshua, all those 5 people who raised their hands on the other side of the
We have Jared and
I just
Ellen.
need a copy of the Rapport magazine, latest magazine. So could we please make sure that everybody that's out there that's not in the room, Joshua, could you make sure they all have a chance to talk?
Jared, you go ahead.
Thank you very much. I think just to echo what Joanne was saying, I think a great way to find out what desired incomes are for source communities is to ask them and to interface with those communities. I'm noting that there's 24 or so diamond producing countries, of which 3/4 have artisanal production, and there's the representative from an NGO of one of those countries here today. And Martin, you do and have done historically a significantly better job than most in including them in this conversation. But how can we even have this conversation without real involvement and engagement with those people? And just moving back just slightly, just to what Stephen said about creating climate positive jewelry. I mean, I think that's wonderful. Wouldn't it be wonderful if consumers were only, if brands had to compete for consumers based on who was doing the most amount of good? But unfortunately, we're not there yet. And I know, Martin, that you believe that the public must vote for more socially responsible products with their wallets, and that we can only solve for good, we can't solve for evil. But I don't think the onus should be on consumers to vote with their dollars. The responsibility for policing companies and validating claims should not be their job, and they're not equipped to do it. And frankly, very few people are, including most people in this industry. And the public's trust is ours to lose, and it's a risk to everyone's bottom line in the form of eroded consumer confidence. And the risks aren't created by synthetics or NGOs when they stumble upon and disclose human rights violations, water contamination, corruption, whatever it is, right? The risks come from bad actors and bad things within our family. So I think we should have a conversation also about how we can create better accountability outside of regulation, outside of membership organizations, to create some accountability, frankly, for those communities and source places where they don't have the agency to create it for themselves. Thank you.
Who else? Joshua, bring more people in from there.
Yeah, Peter's got his raised hand, and Ellen. So you go ahead, Peter. Ellen, you. Okay,
No, Ellen was first. Yeah, go ahead, Ellen.
Ellen, you've been first. Yeah. Go ahead.
Thank you, Peter. I'm just questioning something. We were talking about, Martin, you were saying about, integrating CSR within your company values, within your company, means that there's a premium for the customer, so that you have to charge more. I personally don't think so. If I then make the link to what was said, I don't know by whom, to the marketing. So I think traditional advertising to new customers or the customers from today until 2025 it won't work anymore. So conveying CSR efforts to what millennials require and they require authenticity and a unique approach, etc., is something which is completely integrated in your new marketing strategy or in your new way of advertising or promoting your brand. So I'm not sure that really integrating CSR, and sustainability and whatever into your values and into your company strategy means that you have more costs and that your products will become more expensive. That's what I understood. So I don't believe it because you have another way of promoting it. And then maybe I end up with a question. Maybe it will make a link to your third or fourth point. I do believe that if we do our uttermost best, to make the complete supply chain really transparent and very cooperative, that we risk to lose, the market share to this new generation of buyers or the actual generation of buyers, and that maybe they will flip to synthetics because they know where it's coming from. They have the transparency. They know where it's produced, how many energy. They'll have more access to what the labor conditions are, what the legislation around that topic is. So maybe, do we have a risk then to lose them from a natural diamond market to the synthetic diamond market if we don't are able to, to give all the information and the transparency and the authenticity they want? So that's a question.
Keep going here to make sure we answer everybody. That is
Yeah, okay,
there, and then
so
we'll kind
Peter.
of pull it together. Everybody has to have an opportunity to talk here.
Yeah, we with Peter now.
Yeah, thanks. Yeah, I guess, now listening to this interesting conversation, I guess we also, need to look at another aspect of responsibility, which is, currently is called sustainability. And in my opinion, it has to do a lot with actually how you see your own future, not only as a business, but also as a corporate citizen, I would say. And this is where you actually do need to choose your business model. It can be sustainable, meaning that you are respecting not only the environmental challenges that are there and publicly available, but also what you actually give back to the community where you operate. And these communities differ a lot. We can talk about communities in Yakutia, where you actually, 60 years ago had nothing. Now you have whole cities built, infrastructure, so on and so forth. You can talk also about your own community as a small jeweler somewhere in the middle of the United States. It is also your own community, and your own community in this case is actually your own consumers, and your customers. And in this case, you need to look at the future, and choose your business model. It can be simple, you can simply want to make a profit now and here. But looking at the future, you should understand that if you're not being sustainable and your business model is not looking after the communities where you actually operate and live, meaning that you will have no future. And the point of making an extra profit from being sustainable is not about this. It's about actually being able to have your business in 5 to 10 years. If you are not sustainable, you will not have this business, because as David also pointed out, the consumer, your customer from your community will choose something else. And this is actually what we need to bear in mind always. And sustainability, it's not something new. It has been there for years. It is now called sustainability. It will be called something else in 5 years. But most important is actually what you do, contribute to the communities and to the environment where you operate and live. That is why I guess it's important also to note, there are some talks also of I can be responsible if I do not do this, if I do not do that. In some points, it actually means that you do have a desire to disengage with some of the problems that are there in the world. Disengagement is unfortunately also is not an answer. You are simply trying to shut your eyes on the problems that are there, for example, not only in your own nearby community, yeah, but in the countries outside of, well, your normal way of life, let's put it like this. Meaning that if you do disengage, their life can actually become even worse than it is now. Disengagement is a very scary thing that some people actually tend to think of. Therefore, the responsibility, the sense of it, means that you do not need to disengage, but you need to engage. And this is a hard thing to do. And so, well, to start engaging, I guess every business, depending on its scale, yeah, big or small, should start with small steps. Small steps from all of us will actually allow us to achieve more, yeah, and achieve greater goals. I would, well, try to encourage here to think into a perspective, yeah, and what is our future, yeah, and how we need to tackle the current issues that we have to be sure that the jewelry industry is actually a sustainable one for the years to come. Thanks.
That's a very good statement. And I think what we're saying is that social responsibility is a question of survival. It's not just a question of growing your business, getting a higher price for products, which I think is critical, but it's, if you don't do it, you're going to die. It's like you don't have insurance, or like you're not locking up your goods properly. Okay, that's an interesting concept. And I think that as we look at the brands, there's not even a question that people expect it. And it's great because David, David, before when you're talking, I understand that so well because we have a brand. So we deal with consumers. So we need to protect our brand. So of course we have to have, it's something the consumer expects. He knows if he goes to a jeweler, he's not going to buy a stolen diamond, You're raising your hand there, Jenya.
Yeah, well, I thought this was like maybe a good time to just jump in and just talk more about the NGO perspective, because I think that, I know for a lot of us that work in NGOs, like I might sound somewhat similar to Toby. I mean, I think that we really, really believe that it's not that if you don't do it, you're going to die as a business. It's that you have such an amazing opportunity in the jewelry industry to really make a tremendous difference in the world. And I mean, I think you have to have this mindset if you work for an NGO, like you have to truly believe that the work that you're doing can change the world and is possible. And I think that the issues that exist around responsible sourcing, listen, our issue is mercury pollution and artisanal gold mining. And I'm, somewhat familiar about the other issues that exist, but mercury is the thing that we're knowledgeable on. And listen, the solutions really do exist. You've got a great group of NGOs that know about working in the field with miners, the importance of building trust with this community. Listen, this is 100% clear to us how key it is to build trust with these communities. I think we all value these critical livelihoods. I think we hear a lot, there's a lot of emphasis on the negativity, particularly one of the issues that I think you hear a lot about is deforestation of the Amazon. I don't know, I'm getting, a little frustrated by seeing so much emphasis on the destruction versus the problem, the solutions that exist, which is just one piece of the work that we're doing, because in Peru, artisanal miners need to show that they ecologically close their concessions when they're mined out, and that's using reforestation, hence the connection to that. And listen, the solutions exist. We know how important it is to educate miners and work hand in hand with them and pass this knowledge on to them. So anyway, I mean, we talk a lot about, we have things that we hand out. Why should the jewelry industry care? And it all connects to the things that you're talking about. But the last one is just that it's the right thing to do, and that you truly can make a tremendous impact in the world. Like Pure Earth didn't work with the jewelry industry forever. We were always just simply focused on the health of people, protecting children, and we've sort of realized how critical it is for mercury pollution to connect to the industry. And, when we're here and just sort of see the industry's desire and knowledge I think that we just truly believe that working together and maybe tweaking the solutions and getting feedback from all of you who sort of know what you need to change and improve upon maybe some of the sourcing models that exist, like we really can do that all working together. So, you know, I just kind of wanted to interject that at this time when we're talking specifically about artisanal miners and working with them.
Yeah, but the real question is, what can we do for artisanal miners? I mean, Farai, I would like you to speak to this as well, but are we
We got
creating
one.
a
Gitano hasn't had a chance.
that disempowers, disengages the artisanal sector? Because if, look, we're trading diamonds, right? And you want to sell someone and they're an RJC member, can they buy diamonds or should they buy diamonds? I don't want to go to RJC member, but let's say you're an ethical company. Should you buy diamonds from artisanal? You should say, the hell with this, it's too complicated. I just wash my hands from it. I'm just going to buy diamonds from a De Beers or a Alrosa, big factory site holder in India, and I'll get everything that I need and everything will be ethical and I won't worry about it. On the other hand, if you do get fair trade, like fair trade coffee, fair trade bananas, fair trade chocolate, that might become a niche market within the diamond industry. That would then be a competitive market like fair trade coffee or fair trade, I don't know, chocolates or whatever. So, but what are we going to do about the artisanal sector? I mean, these people are getting screwed. As we pat ourselves on the back and become kosher, you know, what about all the other people? And also, if we're going to run these RJC, and which I like and I support, and this is to you, Iris, if we're going to run RJC standards, what about the small cutters in Surat? And what about the small, you know, artisanal people? What about the college stone business, you know? So what devices, and I'm not negative here, I'm looking for positive. You know, what devices can we use to legitimize the artisanal sector in ways that they can still eat and they have livelihood? Or maybe we study the issue and we say we shouldn't be supporting casino economies that are unsustainable. You know, I was talking to someone, and I forgot who it was. I was just talking to someone who works for me, where I said, check out what's going on. And they said, well, you got to pay these diggers 10% or 5% more than the price of gold, so they feel good and everything and all that. But are we supporting non-sustainable activity? Maybe these artisanal guys should be getting 10% more than the gold price, which is not sustainable unless you can sell it. Maybe we should encourage them to go into agriculture. I just don't know. I'm putting this on the table. I just don't know, but it doesn't look fair to me for us to be, you know, holier than thou great people while, you know, these guys in Sierra Leone or other, and really Farai is even worse situation there, human rights abuses. But what do we do? What should we
I
do?
would just briefly say, listen, I don't know if every solution is going to require a premium. I mean, sometimes we're hearing from the miners when it comes to gold mining that they simply want to get the London bullion price. I mean, I'm not a total supply chain expert, but
that was a small point. Let's assume we are going to give them the gold price. What do we do about the fact that there are demands for monitoring? There are demands for supply chain certification, and that a certain amount of that market is going to be cut out. And I can accept anything, but a certain amount of demand for diamonds will no longer find the artisanal sector to be a acceptable supplier, unless it really takes the jump up to fair trade. And what about the small people in India, in Surat? What do you got? 600, 700, say only 300,000 that are cottage industry kind of workers. What happens to these people?